Alright, you bastards. It is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today we're going to talk about yet another often overlooked and not really forgotten but underestimated piece of prepper gear, I would say. And that's just, I will take it right here, just simple, plain honey. Honey has so many benefits, and it's often underestimated. But I made a list up, which I go from point to point and talk about it even more about the usefulness and also about the risks. So that's why I'm going to. You sometimes see me reading it. So the first tip, just honey is a good way to cook. You can bake meat in it. You can use it in baked goods. And another benefit of it is if you use honey in baked goods, it's kind of a substitute for sugar if you dose it off with water, and that will have antifungal properties which will make the baked good last longer. So that's a small tip. You can use it as a sort of sweetener, just something like you do in your tea, or perhaps on some candy to make it more appetizing or fun for the children. If you have honey enough, you can and turn it into meat. It just, if you want to make meat, I will make a video about it where we'll try it, but it's just water and honey, and you will let it ferment, and that will get a sort of honey wine, which is called meat. So yeah, that is something you can do with honey, which is very good. Next point, antioxidants. Well, to be honest, antioxidants, that depends more on the type of honey, because honey is collected by bees who take it from the flowers in the local area, and depending on the area, you will have different kind of flowers or plants where they get their nectar from, and yeah, that will have some slightly different properties that will be better in some areas than in other areas. So, and it also depends where you buy it, because sometimes the honey will come from far or perhaps it's local. So that's something interesting to look into if you're going to look for this type of health benefits inside of the honey that you buy locally. If it's locally made, if it's locally bought, if it's come from far away by transport, that's something you need to look into. So that's something to watch out for. With these antioxidants, what do? They are sort of protection against cell damage. Not that much, but it's at least something. So that's another benefit of it. Next thing, nutrition. Honey is very, very nutritious. Some people claim you can only live off honey. In a way, yeah, honey contains calories, vitamins, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, amino acids. Zinc. The honey contains it all. In theory, you can live from it. If you're really going to try to do it, you will have some risk problems that I will talk about in a moment. So be aware of that. The next good thing about honey is its antibacterial and antifungal properties. What do I mean by that? First of all, yet again, it depends on the honey. What kind of how good the antifungal and the antibacterial properties are, because sometimes the nectar gets collected from plants that are more medicinal, that have more medicinal properties than in other areas. So yet again, look where your honey is from, and then you can see if it will have the more benefit for this kind of treatment. What kind of treatment are we talking about? First of all, wound healing. If you put honey, and I mean real honey, that's another thing I want to talk about. Real honey is expensive, but it's worth the investment in my eyes because of the beehive collapse disorder that is happening all around the world. So honey will only increase in value, and it can last for almost forever. They found honey in a tomb from a pharaoh in Egypt. It was still edible in theory. So yeah, honey is one of those good investments. So we're where was I? Oh yeah, healed wound healing. Yeah, honey is antibacterial. So if you put it on a wound, the bad bacteria that are inside of it, it works a little bit like an antiseptic, if you will. Another thing is, and how do you say this? Be aware that honey that you use for wounds as wound dressing is sterilized. There is a difference between honey from the store and honey that they use for this kind of a medicinal. But if you have nothing else at hand, honey is better than nothing. But be aware that these things could form a small risk. But like I said, if there's nothing else to do, that's a good thing. Oh, I'm talking about the nutritional part again. I forgot. Honey is also a good energy booster. In my video about how to in a bug out simulation of 30 kilometers, I mixed my water with honey and some salt, and that way my honey, this was almost like an energy drink for a long walk. The honey gives the energy and the calories to and the sugar to go on and keep up the blood sugar, and the salt kept me from losing how do you say this, salt by sweating profusely during the long walk into the sun. So yeah, those you can make a good energy drink out of it. Also see my video about survival drinks. There it's also explained in it. Yeah, I'm going from one place to the other, so excuse me for that. It's a long list and I'm rambling a little bit. Healed wound healing. It's also boosting your immunity. This is something more like it will. It's not like that if you take honey, you will not get the flu. It just reduces the risk to get the flu or other diseases. So it's boosting your immunity system because you're well fed. It's a little bit antibacterial, like I said. So if that get in your system, but you have to eat a lot of more honey with that. So yeah, it's kind of also depending from what kind of honey do you got and where they collected the nectar to make that honey. So yeah, that's yet again something you need to look into. For other things, a sore throat, if you take teaspoons with honey, that's very good against sore throats and coughing. A few days ago, my girlfriend went visiting, and she had a cough. And after giving two tablespoons of honey, she did not cough for the rest of the night. So yeah, that's something that actually kind of worked from that immediately saw result in. So yeah, that's very good against as a sort of cough syrup, as you if you will. The next thing is, um, honey is something that also helps against, how do you say this? If it goes up, acid reflux. Yeah, I think that is the English name, acid reflux. So yeah, that's something that could help against it if medicine is not available from embargoes, too expensive, or during shit hit the fan. So yeah, or if you want to live off grid, of course. It's also a good burn treatment because the honey, if you have a burning wound, you put honey on it, the hydrogen peroxide gets released inside of the honey, and works as a burning treatment. So that's also yet again a good thing. Yet again, look from where the honey is, from what kind of areas with what kind of plants. Yet again, so yeah, that's a thing. Another thing about honey is, like I said, it's a good investment because it's lasts almost forever. Honey is actually barf from a bee that collected nectar from flower plants. So yeah, it's the sugar inside of honey is so densely that no bacterial or pathogens can or fungal can grow inside of it. And like I said before, they found edible honey inside of a tomb of a pharaoh that was like 3,000 years old. And yeah, honey, very good investment. So that's another benefit of honey. When everything is going to shit and you have piles of honey that you invested in when you could, because yeah, it was cheaper than after shit hit the fan or after financial crisis, or another reason why the honey is getting low on supply, because like beehive collapse disorder, like I said. Yeah, so honey is liquid gold in my opinion, so that's why I like to buy real honey. By the way, watch my word, real honey. uh, Whenever I get a chance. Real honey is expensive, like I said. Don't buy the cheap honey from the stores that is laced with some sort of syrup almost, or yeah, glucose perhaps is the name. So be aware of that. Those are the less good properties that I mentioned before. So let's go to the next part. Honey is this. I not did not test this, so I cannot be assured of it. But honey should be a good parasite killer. If you are on a bug out or have a bug in and you think you have parasites because of the food or meat that you digested, like tapeworms or something, or I'm not sure about it, but they say that you have to mix honey and water and vinegar together, and that is something that can kill parasites that are inside of you. So I'm not sure about this. Look more information about it, but it's something that came into my knowledge on the radar. So I would say if somebody has some experience in this field or has more knowledge about it, leave it in the comments. I really want to know if this is a good parasite killer. Next, sleep aid. Yeah, honey is good as a sleep aid. Like I said, it's a good sweetener for tea. Mix it and mix the honey with the tea before you go to sleep, and yeah, you will sleep very good. I tested it out, and it's kind of it made me doze off. So yeah, it's a good. Like I said, but don't put too much honey in it because that's yet again an energy boost. So be balanced. It's just for the taste, for the sweetener. So yeah, it's we're going to the next one. That is something you uh, I do not know about it because I do not have that much hair anymore, but it's supposed to be a good hair conditioner. If you let honey rub it in your hair, let it rest for 20 minutes, and it should be like a shampoo. But in my opinion, honey for a shampoo is kind of a waste. In my opinion, it's too valuable for that. But it's just a little tip that I got. Um, it's also good as a food preservative. Um, like I said before, with the baked goods, or if you have meat like beef jerky, rub it in with honey, and it'll, will get a sort of antifungal layer around it. So that's something you can experiment with. I'm not 100% sure what the best method is. If somebody knows, leave it in the reactions. I really want to know this. So let's talk about now about the risk of honey, because if I hear preppers talk about honey, they only talk about the benefits about it, but they never mention the risk. So here are some of the risk. Uh, Never give honey to children below the age of 1, or I would say wait even a few more years. Give it to children who are above 4, in my opinion. But the minimum is under 1 year that you don't want to give it. Why? Because of sometimes honey can carry sort of botulism, and that could be very dangerous for children under 1 year for their intestines. So yeah, that's something you need to watch out for. Don't give it to small infants. Next thing, if you this is why I doubted about it that you can live off honey alone, because if you eat honey a lot, it will give you diarrhea. And I'm talking about really diarrhea, because there is a sort of punishment in history. I think it was in ancient Mongolia that the punishment was that they put somebody in a sort of coffin, smeared him in with honey, and only fed the person honey, so they had more excrements, like diarrhea, and that will attract more insects. So the insects will eat them slowly because of all the honey and the excrements. So yeah, that way honey could cause diarrhea if you only eat honey. So yeah, and yet again, for the some persons are sensitive to honey because of genetics, or perhaps there are some other bacterial in the inside of their intestines that are not reacting good to honey. Some people can handle it, some people cannot handle it. So that's something you need to watch out for if you consume it in larger quantities. Some people start to vomit. Some people will even get constipation because of it. But yet again, in a survival situation, many people, or if you're going to travel abroad, many people get constipation or a sort of sickness as a reaction to new sort of foods. So perhaps it's a sort of reaction to a new type of food, like I said. So yeah, that's something you need to wager up. So yeah, another thing, like I said, the hay fever risk. Uh, like I said, honey gets collected from local plants from the local area. So if you're a person who is highly sensitive for hay fever, perhaps you do not get it from the area where you live in, but if it's from a very pollen-stricken area and you eat a honey that can contain these particles, then you can have an allergic reaction to it. So yeah, that's something you need to watch out for. And I'm not sure about this, so don't take this medical advice, but it can also be uh, a relief against allergies because it works a little bit like not really a vaccine. Vaccine is not really the word, but if you consume honey with certain pollens and you get it in smaller quantities, you would build a sort of immunity for it. If you get into the area, if you got hay fever, I'm not sure about this, so please let me know it in the comments what you think, or if you know somebody who can give me definite answer to this question. Because yeah, the internet has, you can find 100 pages that will go pro, and you will have 100 pages that will go con. So that's why I ask to people who perhaps have some personal experience with this, or if it's an idea to work with and test it out. So let me know, I'm really curious about it. So yeah, this was my video about something that is not talked about enough, and that's honey for survival preparation. I always put a jar of honey, real honey by the way, inside of my bug out bag, and I have honey in my food pantries a lot. So yeah, do whatever you want with it, with this information. Give me answers about the things that I was not sure about it, so I'm looking forward for that. Or give me sources to it that would be very and I'm talking about real sources that will lead to investigations or scientific research, so that I can find the source of the information myself. And yeah, so subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Leave a like, leave a reaction, leave an answer to the questions that I had. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Cheers.